You are watching a Rainy Days production. The rewind on this GE recorder was weak, so I put little bitty rubber bands you get when you have braces around the rollers that the belt went around, and then also cleaned the surfaces of the rollers and the belt using Windex. The rewind now works extremely well. One more thing I'm going to do to this recorder while I have it open is I'm going to modify it so that the remote jacks, instead of the on-off switch on the mic or an external on-off through the remote, instead of turning the entire machine on and off, we'll just turn the motor on and off so that it can be paused and you can still set the recording level. So I just also want to show some shots of the other side of the circuit board while I have it exposed. So there's the other side of the printed circuit board on this old recorder. And here's the top side, the component side of the circuit board of this recorder. Of course, a 4-transistor machine here, the power output transistors. Here's one of the amplifying transistors earlier down. There's another transistor right there. These transistors are made by Fairchild Semiconductor, which is also making me think more so that it's an American-made tape recorder. Here on this capacitor you can see what I believe is a date code 6524, which I would think would mean the 24th week of 1965, dating this recorder at 1965. It's a neat looking little circuit board. DC bias, of course. And then there's the VU meter, the UV meter. Okay, this black wire right here and this green wire right here, those connections will be joined together on the circuit board. And then these wires, which go down to the series connected remote jacks, will be wired in series with the DC motor to do the modification. Okay, viewers, I've wired up the unit to make the motor turn on and off by itself from the remote while keeping the amp on. I simply where the two wires from the remote, there's two remote jacks on this recorder and they're both wired in series. The two wires that come from that set of remote jacks connected to these points on the circuit board. So I just put a little jumper there because all that we did was just turn the amplifier and motor, so they just turn the main power on and off separately from the mechanically actuated switches from the transport. And then the wires that went to the remote jacks I have wired just to put in series with the motor. So one of the wires goes to the motor and the other wire goes to what used to go to the other wire on the motor. So anyway, there's those connections there. Like that. So the motor was hooked up where these two blue wires go originally, but now it's in series with the switch before it goes to the motor. It was suggested that I take a look inside this motor. At some point I will, to see if I can get the original one to work. And if I can't get the original one to work, most likely this will just be waiting as a parts motor. But anyway, I'm not going to take it apart right now, but anyway. So now I can put the unit back together. Well, viewers, the recorder is back together in one piece with the modification and fixed rewind, and it is now operating very nicely with that modification. The beauty of this now is the unit can be started and stopped, but the amp is still kept on so the recording level can be set. Much nicer that way. The recording level is set lower. We should be able to get decent fidelity out of this, although it will have some DC bias, as I presume. The level is set all the way up now. It picks up quite well. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I now have an external power supply plugged into this recorder. There's probably going to be a little bit of a AC, not perfectly filtered hum in the machine. Levels at mid position now. Testing. This is a recording. that's right now. We can start and stop the machine without turning off the amp. And now rewind. Quite well. Testing 1, 2, 3. It used to be with the rewind it was too weak, so that if there was not much tape on the supply reel, then on the take-up reel, there was enough tension from the spring belt driven take-up with the clutch mechanism to counterbalance the rewind tension, and the rewind wouldn't do anything. So after that cleaning and adding of those braces rubber bands, the rewind is now working exceptionally well on this recorder. And of course, with the modification, we can pause the microphone. It has 2 remote jacks, so we can either use the microphone's remote jack here, or we can use the 3.5mm sized larger remote jack right here with a separate start-stop switch, and either of those will just turn the motor off now. But the amplifier will stay running, so when we're recording, we can pause it, we can get a level set on the meter, and then we can start the machine making a recording, which is much nicer than how it used to be. It would have been nice if they had made it that way from the get-go on the design. It wouldn't have been any additional cost in the production, because these machines were built to a price, but probably the reason why they didn't opt for that is because if you leave it paused for a long period of time and the amp's running, that will use up more battery power, and that's probably the reason why they didn't do it that way.